a passionate instigator and dynamic problem solver. Dr. Kevin Ross Emery, the host of the Dr. Kevin Radio Show, will be taking you outside the box, behind the curtain, and identifying the load of BS we are fed every day. And now, Dr. Kevin.
Hello, 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 and welcome to our last show of the month. Yes, next week, we start July 1st with our whole new month of entertainment. And to close out the Dr. Kevin show for this month, we have a special guest for you, and we'll be getting to her in just a few minutes. Do remember, this is a live call-in show, so you can call in at 202-570-7057. That's 202-570-7057. So call in with your questions or your comments for me or for the guest. We would love to hear from you. Now, as many of you know that are regular listeners, when I do have a guest show, I always start with a hot topic. And a hot topic is something that gets me hot and bothered under the collar or warms the cockles of my heart. And I'm going to let you guys know that up until about 120 seconds before I came in to do the show, I had a hot topic that had me hot under the collar. And I thought, I've done a lot of hot topics, a lot of hot collar topics. And I thought, maybe I want to do something that warms the cockles of my heart for a change. Because it just seemed like those old cockles just ain't got enough warming lately. Even though it's beautiful and it's going to be 90 in the weekend, you would think that would be warm enough, but you can never get those cockles too warm. So I'm going to actually share something that I posted on my Facebook page. And it's about Nelson Mandela. When he was studying law at the university, a white professor whose last name was Peters disliked him intensely. One day, Mr. Peters was having lunch at the dining room when Mandela came along with his tray and sat next to the professor. The professor said, "Mr. Mandela, you do not understand. A pig and a bird do not sit together to eat." Mandela looked at him as a parent would a rude child and calmly replied, do not worry, Professor, I'll fly away." And he went and sat at another table. Professor Peters, reddened with rage, decided to take revenge. The next day in class, he posed the following question. "Mr. Mandela, if you were walking down the street and found a package, and within that was a bag of wisdom and another bag with money, which one would you take?" Without hesitating, Mandela responded, "The one with money, of course." Professor Peters, smiling sarcastically, said, "I, in your place, would have taken the wisdom." Nelson Mandela shrugged and responded, "Each one takes what he doesn't have." Professor Peters, by this time, was about to throw a fit, seething with fury. So great was his anger that he wrote on Nelson Mandela's exam sheet the word idiot and gave it to the future struggle icon. Mandela took the exam sheet and sat down at his desk, trying very hard to remain calm when he contemplated his next move. A few minutes later, Nelson Mandela got up, walked up to the professor, and told him in a dignified and polite tone, "Mr. Peters, you signed your name on the sheet, but you forgot to give me my grade." End of story. People only have the power we give them. Yes, there are some powers. You have professors, you have bosses. You have people that you have to figure out how to get along because they can and do influence certain aspects of your life. But that doesn't mean you have to give your power away. It doesn't mean you have to be treated poorly or that you should sit by and let somebody basically be condescending to you. So I wanted to share that today because this warmed the cockles of my heart. With everything going on in the world today, it's easy to get hot under the collar. It's easy to get caught up in a tug of war with people that you look at as misinformed or in somehow counter to how you see the world. But if the person you're seeing truly is, let's say, an idiot, and you're engaging in debate, this paraphrases Mark Twain, then that just simply makes you a fool. So he didn't actually engage in any debate. He just stood his ground in a most amusing way. And so that was what I decided to share at the beginning of today's thing. So we're going to skip a hot under the collar. We're going to do a warm the cockles of your heart. As you go out into your life tonight and over the next few days, if somebody says something to goat you, take it, milk it, and return some goat cheese to them. Kind of like Nelson did. Tonight's guest is Lisa Barnett. She is an international best-selling author, speaker, and founder of Akashic Knowing School. She is an Akashic reader and a teacher. And our contact information has her, that you can find her on LinkedIn. And it's Akashic Knowing on LinkedIn. So I suspect if you put her name in and search for it, you would probably find it as well. The link is on the Dr. Kevin Show fan page. It is also on the My Dr. Kevin fan page if you just want to click a link. So, Lisa, welcome. And what insights or wisdom do you have about Mr. Mandela and today's story?
Oh, hello, Kevin. I'm excited to be here with you and loved the story because it's so very much right up my alley in the sense that our own soul wisdom, our own really divine truth is what's important to us on our soul's journey. The lessons we've come to learn, the people we've come to support, the gifts and talents and wisdom we've come to share. And so I completely agree with you that when we can really stand in our own power and be empowering to other people, then we're really in a beautiful soul alignment and able to help and support people. And when we spend a whole lot of time, being mean or snide or condescending, we're giving no one any gifts, and we're certainly not giving them our wisdom. And so I love the way Nelson Mandela really was able to calmly either share his own wisdom or kind of, sidestep the BS and just let himself be over it. So it was a great story. Thanks for sharing it.
You're welcome. And, one of the things is, of course, this was a white professor, and Nelson was, because he has passed now, a person of color, living in a very highly racist culture at the time. And people of color back then definitely were expected to stay in their place. And Nelson let his professor know that where his place at the table was, which was wittier, smarter, funnier, and quicker on the draw. So I love that. So, Lisa, you are the founder and a teacher and a reader of the Akashic Records. There's a lot of stuff out there about Akashic Records. There's a lot of information. It's not an unfamiliar term to my audience, I'm sure, because, I draw a lot of people in this last 15, 16 years I've been on air that are very spiritually based and have that, and kind of have enough of a foundation that I'm sure that word has come behind them. I also find that people will interchange Akashic Records with doing past life work or past life readings. So I'm going to put that out there right at the beginning. And as we go through our questions today, and you enlighten us about your school and the work you do and what its benefits are, I would like you to work in somewhere. Are they the same thing? Are they interchangeable? If they're not, how are they different? Because I often hear people express some confusion of what is the difference, and you would be the person to tell us. So let's start with our first question, which is, where would you like to take our listeners outside the box around whatever you want, actually? It doesn't have to be Akashic Records. You can talk about the price of rice in Hoboken, New Jersey. But where would you like to take my listeners outside the box?
Well, I would love to take them into the concept that your soul made a plan before you came to Earth and that your life is not random. And I know, especially after having gone through the last year and, just lots of crazy times and lots of actual high vibrational energy coming to the planet. So it's shaking us up, it's waking us up, and it's actually bringing a lot of the old stuck energy, negative energy, dark energy that has been, in our world, in our society for hundreds and thousands of years. And so, that is really what I'm writing my third book about, is helping people to understand how your soul plan affects your life. And I also love to do a lot of really energetic healing in the quantum field for my clients and teach this to my students. And, maybe we'll do some group healing today if that shows up as a good thing to do for the group, because we can go into the energy of the quantum field. So the Akashic Records are the recording of your soul's journey throughout time. And, of course, because there really is no time-space continuum, this energy, these past lives are always happening in this now moment in the quantum field. And because it's all in the moment in the quantum field, what I realized is in the Akashic Records, which are part of source energy and the quantum field, we can go into that Akashic space in the quantum field and heal anything before this moment that may be called to heal. So it might have been a nasty divorce from 10 years ago that is still, bothering you, hurting you, blocking you from creating a really loving relationship. Or it could be a traumatic childhood or a situation that happened to you in your teen years, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. And or other lifetimes, because those lifetimes still often affect us today. Because when we write a soul plan, we say, I want to learn more, I want to share my talents, I want to love more, I want to support other souls that I've known in other lifetimes or who are part of my soul family. So there is so many possibilities when we expand the idea of the Akashic Records into the quantum field and the ability to heal or shift that energy.
Okay, so you have this Akashic record, which was your plan that your soul made when it came in. How much of this would fall into what some people would call destiny, and how much is affected by free will choice?
Yeah, so basically, it's kind of like writing a business plan. One business owner might stick to the plan, every single word, follow what they decided and who they're going to work with and what they're going to do and how much they're going to make and how much they're going to spend. And someone else may write that business plan and throw it in the desk drawer and, go on about their business as they feel fit in the moment. So what the record keepers tell us about our soul plan is we write a pretty full soul plan to experience a variety of different things, to learn and grow as a soul, to meet other souls, other people that we have soul contracts with, and some of those contracts are to support them and them to support us, and some have karma attached. In other words, there are challenges and situations we've agreed to as souls before we embodied so that we could both learn and grow, right? So that's kind of the big overview is soul growth. And sometimes we learn really easily and quickly, and sometimes we don't learn that lesson at all. Some people come in with kind of a consciousness and an awareness of what they came to do, maybe kind of what their path might be, or their talents are really front and center. They may be amazing musicians from the time they're, 3 or 4 or 5, and there's no question about what they're going to do with their life. And then there's the majority of us who kind of, bumble around a lot more, and we sometimes find people we really resonate with, and that might be somebody you have a soul contract with. So there's a part that would be kind of set up to help us to work through the plan we've written. So meeting some of those other souls, and sometimes we meet them, but it might not be an instantaneous connection. We might, meet them and let them go and meet them again in 10 years or, 30 years and be like, oh my gosh, there you are. How come I didn't notice you 30 years ago? So free will is a big piece of being human. So we always have free will. So your plan is a little bit less about destiny, because what the record keepers always say is nothing is written in stone. So we make a plan, and we try and, actuate some of it. And we sometimes, jump off and onto a different road and say, I didn't like whatever was going on there. Let's try that other highway. It looks like it's got will be a prettier drive. And so it's a lot of a mix, and it depends kind of on the awakeness of the soul.
Well, two things you said I want to comment on. And I will comment when we get back here. We are here with Lisa Barnett, who is the founder of the Akashic Record School and a teacher and an Akashic Record reader here on the Dr. Kevin Show. And we'll be right back after this break.
Conscious media for conscious minds. OMTimes. Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of OMTimes magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going On? My passion is sifting through information, research, and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers, and researchers pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics, and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
Coping-19, brought to you by CDC and the Ad Council.
If you're feeling increasingly lonely right now, you're not alone. It's totally normal. Even though we may not be able to get together in person, connecting virtually with friends and family still gives you a chance to interact with people and may help raise your spirits. Join a virtual book club, set up group text chats, or online video coffee breaks with coworkers.
Find more self-care and coping tips at coping-19.org.
Hello, and welcome back to this week's Dr. Kevin Show. And this week we have Lisa Barnett, international best-selling author, speaker, and founder of Akashic Knowing School. She is an Akashic reader and teacher, and you can go and find her under Akashic Knowing on LinkedIn. That's linkedin.com. And remember, we are a live call-in show, so if you have questions about Akashic Records or any of the other conversations we're having, please feel free to call in at 202-570-7057. That's 202-570-7057. So there were two things that you commented on that I wanted to, that you said that I wanted to comment on, Lisa. You're still there, right?
I am,
Hello?
absolutely.
Oh,
I'm waiting.
Oh, great. So one of the things that you said, and I probably misheard it, but it made it almost sound like we might be there to support people, blah, blah, or we might be there as a challenge, a karmic challenge, blah, blah, blah. But karma is not necessarily a positive or negative thing. It's just a recording of what's in and out of balance. I mean, is that not true?
Yes, absolutely. So karma,
Okay.
to me, is not a punishment. It's not because you've been bad or you've done something wrong. It's about learning and understanding something differently or more compassionately.
It was just the way you said the example, and karma is one of those things that we've talked about many times over the years here, because a lot of people do kind of do that Christian demonization of it, like it's a punishment. And so I just wanted to clarify that for the listeners in case anybody else was hearing it as I was. And the other thing was actually a story out of my life, which had to do with meeting this very excellent palmist that I just loved. In fact, he went and used to teach classes at various healing centers I've had through the years. And he talked about my one hand had more of the lines of the plan of what I came in. But the first time he ever did, I always remember, and I thought of this because of what you said, which he said, it was really, you were going to struggle with being abused until you were into your early 20s, and then you were going to turn that abuse into empowerment. And I can see right here, you were probably 16, maybe 17, and in your hand that is actually writing the record as you're doing it versus the hand that is the record that you wrote coming in. Not exactly his language, but in your language, that's what it would be. He goes, you were like, I'm sick of this shit. I ain't doing this abuse thing anymore. And you had just empowered and you just broke this line and it went completely different. You're like, yeah, I'm out of here. And he said, I'm not exactly sure how you did it, but you definitely did it. And I thought of that because of what you talked about when we come in with these records. And obviously the work I have done over years now of helping people through abusive childhoods, I needed to have one in order to do it. I mean, it helped me. I didn't have to, but I chose to because it has helped me with people in a much deeper and more meaningful and more profound way because I walked the path myself. So I just wanted to throw that out there. It was kind of some of what I felt like you were saying with the Akashic Records there. So can you comment to me, though, how does that interact with doing past life work?
So going back to your example, your childhood, if you don't mind, it's very powerful because I have seen this again and again and again in clients and students that I've worked with. And in a sense, the difference is that you wrote a plan that said, I want to go to Earth this time because I believe we are ready to end abuse on this planet. And I will do that in my own way by ending abuse for myself and never passing it on to another child or person. And I will learn and have that experience so that I can become a teacher and a healer around that situation. So our plan is we come in to do something, and that is much bigger than just a past life, in a sense. Now, you may have also had numerous past lives where you were abused, where you were the abuser, and these are the what we call karmic patterns, which is that I'm trying to figure out how this works and how I can be different and how I can end this, how I can be more compassionate, how I can live in a space of forgiveness around this action or this situation. And I want to learn all of that so that I can finally come forward and end it and break that really quickly in maybe whatever unusual way it was that you were able to do that in this life for yourself. And it's often because we've had numerous past lives and we've come to empower other people around that situation. And so, we are taking much of our soul's learning and growth over numerous lifetimes. We're writing it into the soul plan. We're saying, I'm ready to be the teacher and to be the breaker of chains, to end abuse on the planet, to do that with thousands and thousands of other people who are here doing the same thing at this same time in history. And so it's a very empowering thing to learn about yourself, I think. And so that's what I've seen when I've been able to share that exact sort of information with my clients, that their abuse is not because they were being punished, but it's because they're powerful souls who came in to end that situation in the world and to be some sort of teacher or, healer or therapist, so that they're there supporting people, or maybe just they help their neighbor or their neighbor's child, just by being there and having that experience and wisdom and ability and gift to talk about it from their heart. And so it's a very, very profound soul contract, if you could look at it that way. And so to me, it's more than a past life.
So now, one of the things is when like if I'm doing, I've been doing professional psychic work since the 70s. Like I like to remind people, I'm just slightly older than dirt. So, and so in that, I have never myself encountered, which doesn't mean anything one way or the other when I say it. I've never encountered the readers you talk about, and I'm going to have you elaborate on that in a minute. So, but if I go in and I'm looking at, I always kind of saw it as a tapestry. Like there's this huge tapestry, and these are all the things we came in, and there are all these little threads, like a tapestry, like a medieval tapestry you would see on a huge castle wall. And of course, you don't have to throw what you would call that Akashic plan away to have several other people make bad free will choices and not show up at their appointed time, which makes it a little difficult to do some of the things you wanted to do. Sometimes it has nothing to do with your commitment to it, but just the availability of the people who may have decided to throw their plan away. But I always saw it as like a tapestry, and I could always kind of psychically look and talk with somebody per se about, if it was important, because I'm very, very specific in the work I do. This is only if this is helping you to move forward. Like, I don't do sideshow psychic. Don't have any patience for it. This is only if it's going to help you move forward, give you an understanding, see maybe where you had to zig or zag because some thread got pulled out of the tapestry, and it may have led to a chain of events that your soul wasn't prepared for. And therefore, you played these things out and stuff like that. So talk to me about these, so that's kind of how I did it, which is neither better, worse, different, whatever. It could all be languaging. But you interest me when you talk about these readers. So talk to me about these readers. So you talk to somebody you're calling Akashic readers. Who are these souls? Keepers. Who are these souls, and are they changing? Are they the same people all the time? Is this a life to death, eternity role? Talk to me more about these keepers.
Absolutely. So the Akashic record keepers are beings of light. They're pure soul energy. So the way they describe themselves to me is that as a soul, once we individuate from source, we make a plan and go on a journey. And some souls say, I'm going to go into the library and I'm going to check out the library. Maybe I'll do a little bit of research before I go, jump on an airplane or a bus or, go off on my way. I want to see what's out there, maybe what some of the infinite possibilities are for me in my life, and make this plan for my next step now that I'm an individuated soul. And so if you imagine that some of the souls go into the library, and, they're actually very funny because they're just pure source energy. And so when they first told me this story, they said, so imagine source is a skyscraper in Manhattan, and all the people who squish into an elevator and come down from source and end up in the library all together, that 25 or 45 people, that's your soul family now. There you all are, brand new baby souls. Off you go, out of the lobby, out onto the street of Manhattan, and you look around and you go, okay, what the heck are we going to do? And so you might walk down the street as a group and you see, all the buses and taxis zooming by and bicycles. And there's this huge, huge building. It's not a skyscraper, but it's a square city block. And you go on in and you're in the, Manhattan City Library. And you go, let's learn some stuff. Let's read some books. And you stay. And you start to be taught, and you start to help, and you start to shelve books, and you start to understand how kind of a soul works in these kinds of ways. And many of the record keepers stay and work in the records for a very long time, or even some indefinitely. They tell me that there is a hierarchy in a kind of linear human sense. So you have the beings of light who are shelving the books and learning. They're kind of the newer souls, and then you have the teachers, and they're here to help with more of the questions and point you in the right direction of which book you want to look in or what you want to research, or go over here if you want to learn more about that aspect of you or your lives, whatever it might be. And then there's Akashic record masters, and they help you more with the expansive aspect of soul path, purpose, gifts and talents, what you want to share with humanity. And then there's the Akashic Lords, and I have spoken to them probably a half a dozen times in my life, and they come in when they want me to write another book. And they literally say that, it's time to write another book. And I say, okay, what are we writing about? And they tell me. And I say, okay. And I will basically sit down and channel a book in 3 or 4 days. I just will lock myself in a room for 3 or 4 days and just write like a crazy person. And then I go, okay, there it is. Let's read it and see what I said. And so that is how kind of my channeling of the Akashic Lords works. So they're here in support to us, and each person has numerous record keepers. I just call them the record keepers as a kind of general group. And we all have many. I think most of us would say that if we learn to access our own Akashic records and start to work in the records and do this kind of work, we might speak to numerous record keepers. They'll have a little bit different kinds of energy vibration. They don't have names because they've never been human. They have no they have no judgment. They have no opinions. Because they don't have any of the human aspects. So the beautiful thing is they're pure unconditional love, and they're here to support us.
So these record keepers don't ever incarnate. They stay in the library for whatever, eternity, whatever.
Well,
Is that, am I correct?
No, not totally. I think some do. Some stay in the records, but many, after whatever length of experience, right? Because there is no time space, so we'll have that kind of thing. Well, maybe they've moved up to being a teacher or a master, and they're like, hey, I'm ready to go on my own journey. I want to go check all of these worlds or planes or dimensions or even the earth. What the heck, right? And so we do go on our own journey. And so that was my experience. Again, so much of my learning has come over many years of doing this work. And often when I ask them, when they ask me to do something, and I say, that's crazy, why me, right? And they, when they ask me to help them to bring the Akashic records back to humanity because the energy had been pulled away from the earth back during the Dark Ages around 1000 AD, and the vibration was raised far enough that we as humans, regular humans, couldn't access the information easily anymore because we had misused the information for our own, just for our own kind of desires, right? Where did that person hide their gold? How do I win this war? You know, what's that person's weak point in war? So they pulled the energy away, and then back around the really the 60s, but it took a lot of years between the 60s and about 2000, as I noticed. They started saying it's time to bring the energy back. This really is your birthright to have this information. But most of us humans had forgotten about it. So when I said, you know, why would you want me to help you bring this back? Why would you want me to start a school? I had a bunch of little kids, and I was a mother in the suburbs, and I'm like, that's a boatload of work. You're crazy. And so I said, so why? You know, give me a good reason, and I'm flexible. But when I said why, they said, because you were one of us. So you were a record keeper who went on a journey and has been human for 1,000 lifetimes, which is like a horrific amount of time in my opinion. But they said, you've come to help us bring this information and wisdom back to humanity. And I said, okay then, I will do the best I can. And that has been what I have done since they asked.
So we're going to be going on our break. We will be back right after this with Judith Barrett. And remember, you can call in 202-570-7057.
The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Vox Novus, the new voice. Vox Novus, the new dimension. Vox Novus, thought and movement leaders who will share from their experience and offer tools to help us navigate our rapidly changing world. My name is Victor Furman. Join me every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio for Vox Novus, the new voice.
If I could be you.
And you could be me?
For just 1 hour.
If you could find a way
to get inside
each other's mind.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out. And for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Hello, 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 and welcome back to the last segment of the Dr. Kevin Show on the last Thursday of the month of June. We are 6 months into this year, and we're just getting started. Today's guest is an international best-selling author, speaker, and founder of the Akashic Knowing School. She is an Akashic Reader teacher, Lisa Barnett. You can find out more from her if you want to go to LinkedIn and look up her name, or Akashic Knowing. That's Akashic Knowing. And remember, this is a live call-in show, so if you have questions about the Akashic records for Lisa, or any questions at all for either one of us, you can call in at 202-570-7057. Again, that's 202-570-7057. So I just want to clarify something you said in the last segment, Lisa. So once you go into the incarnational cycle, can you go back to being one of the readers again?
No, you actually can't, because what they say is that because the Akashic Record Keepers are pure source energy, they're pure love, and they don't want souls who have had human experiences, who have judgments and beliefs and, opinions about things. And so once we become human, we never, or really once we really leave that big library in the sky, once we've moved on, we never go back. But we often do other things, such as eventually become ascended masters. Some of us will hopefully be that. I think there's more and more wise ones and ascended masters that we'll be seeing in the future, as so many more souls are really awakening and bringing that truth out there. But we won't be record keepers again.
I was kind of comparing that to the angelic information that I have received through the years, which doesn't line up always with some of the more taken for granted concepts, because in all of the work through the years that I've done with the angelic realm, it's like created, when souls were created, never incarnate, never will, have a specific purpose. It's like a race all of their own. This is what they do. And so it was making me think a little bit of like what you were saying, except they were very clear to me, and this always riles angelic groupies up when I say that. But Metatron has always said to me for 20 years now of talking to him and trans-channeling him and taking him around the world with me, that the angels have no hierarchy. That hierarchy is simply a human concept to try to have some order in their mind. And so I found it interesting that clearly the Akashic readers have spelled out to you that they have a hierarchy of kind of the roles that they play. But outside of that, there was some of what you were saying that was making me think some of the information I've got from the angels. So that being said, you said you have written 3 books from the Akashic Lords?
Yes. So I'm just finishing the 3rd. Do you want me to talk about the others, or all 3 of them, or we have time?
Well, yeah. Well, we've definitely got a little bit. We've got some more time, and so I at least want to get the titles out into the air of what the titles of these books are and where people would go to find them.
Absolutely.
So let's start there.
Okay. So the newest book, I actually seem to have written them in backward order. So the newest book is called Your Soul Has a Plan, Awakening to Your Life Purpose. And that will be out on Amazon. Probably the end of July is the plan. That's what I'm working for, and so that's the newest one that'll be coming out. But the two that are also available, probably easiest on Amazon. I know people find The Infinite Wisdom of the Akashic Records in bookstores around the country. I even found it in a wonderful bookstore in London once, and so that was very fun. But The Infinite Wisdom of the Akashic Records is actually a how-to book. It teaches you my 5-step wisdom prayer system to access the Akashic Records for yourself. And so if you want to learn how to access the records, that's the book to find in your local bookstore if you've got spiritual bookstores, or on Amazon. So that's The Infinite Wisdom of the Akashic Records. And then the other book I wrote is called From Questioning to Knowing, 73 Healing Prayers to Transform Your Life. And that book, I channeled, the record keeper said, we want to channel a healing prayer book. And I said, really, that seems unusual. And they laughed at me, of course, and said, did you forget that you were a prayer practitioner with the Unity Church for 10 years? And I, of course, laughed and said, yes, I forgot already, because after all those kids, I forgot most things, but pre-kids. Anyway, so 73 healing prayers, I talk a lot about, or they talk a lot about, different situations that we have. We talk about healing family dynamics, using forgiveness to clear and release old karmic patterns or beliefs, that were not good enough. We work really through a lot of the old energies that are time to be done with around blame and guilt and shame. And we talk about soul contracts in our family and how to release old vows and patterns and contracts. And so there's a lot of very useful information with healing prayers connected to them. And then we have prayers to also to awaken and to release old kinds of energies from the body, from the field, how to bridge heaven and earth, how to upgrade our DNA, create a majestic body. So those are a couple of the titles, as well as, clearing anger, clearing grief. We all have these different kinds of experiences, and sometimes they can keep us, stuck in a cycle that we're ready to be done with. And so realizing what they are, doing a little bit of prayer work, and of course the Akashic energy vibration, because I channeled them from the Akashic record keepers, that they have that energy and vibration. And many people over the years have told me that they have received phenomenal healing and release from using my prayer book. So that also, From Questioning to Knowing, 73 Prayers to Transform Your Life, is also on Amazon.
So I have two places I can go here, and I am going to give you the choice. One is, we often talk about forgiveness on this show, and we get into it, and some of the stuff that we're taught about forgiveness, which is a load of crap. And then the other one is, I still think that there are people that are out there that are going, what exactly do you get from an Akashic record? Like, what do you get? Can you give me an example? So you can either we can discuss forgiveness, which will clearly take us to the end of the show, or I would see could you find a record that you could share with me that would have the listeners go, oh, okay, now I get what you're talking about. Because, the Akashic records are something that I've always found kind of fascinate people, but they're also kind of leery. And they're kind of like, well, how is that different from a psychic reading? Or what is that? And And I'm a real believer that, I make my astrologer, who comes on once a month all the time. I know my chart. I'll be like, well, so how's that going to affect my what? People want to know, what would they get if they called you, and what would it sound like? How would it be different than any other psychic reading? So you have your choice. Do you want to discuss forgiveness, or do you want to see if your keepers will share something? Where do you want to go?
Yeah, it sounds like you've done a lot of discussions about forgiveness. I don't know that I have all that much more to say about it, but I do, I'm a big fan, and the record keepers gave me a forgiveness prayer, which is also in my book, From Questioning to Knowing, and in both, in the Infinite Wisdom. So people can certainly read that and see how that feels as a way to move out of that energy and that pain. And so happy to kind of share a little bit about why people come to me for Akashic record readings. And so, let's go there. So basically what I would say is that, I had just a lovely client just the other day, just this week, who said, I've had a bunch of psychic readings. I've done some tarot and astrology, and what I don't know, and what no one seems to actually be able to tell me and or clear, is what is blocking me from creating a great success with my business in my life. And he said, I knew when I was very young that I could create whatever I wanted to create. I was kind of awake and came from a very spiritual family, but I haven't quite had that happen in my life. And, why? Can you tell me why? Because he's like, I'm starting a new business. I would love it to be successful. I completely believe I have that ability, but I don't know why I'm not having that experience in my life. And so the way it works is I just ask that of his Akashic record keepers. I open his specific Akashic library. So if you imagine, we all have our own library and our own librarians. And they said, one of the things that is blocking him are vows of poverty and vows of obedience. And the record keeper said, you've been very religious. You've been a priest and a monk and a nun, and in many, many different lives, and you've taken vows of poverty. So that says, I will not take money for my God-given gifts. And so I can clear, of course, again, because we're in the quantum field of the Akash, we can clear all those lifetime vows. We can literally make a nice bonfire of vows and burn them up because they're vows from other lifetimes. They're no longer valid or valuable in this life. So we did that, and then they said, we often take vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. And for this particular person, the vow of obedience was a big deal. And I said, I get that you are of service, and you were kind, and you were gentle, and you never take the lead. And he said, yeah, absolutely. I'm here for other people. And the record keeper said, this is an old vow of obedience, and it is actually holding you back from standing in your own power, in your own wisdom and knowledge, running your own business. You're almost, letting other people push you around instead of doing what you've come to do as this wise soul. And so we cleared the vows of obedience, and then they said he also has vows with his brothers. So I said, how many brothers do you have? 2, 3 brothers? 3 brothers? He said, I've got 3 brothers. And as the youngest, he said, I'm very conscious that I never wanted to be better than them. And even though 2 of my brothers have done pretty well, I never wanted to be better. I didn't, And so again, we have many of these vows from other lifetimes. So again, we do access a lot of past life information and do a lot of past life healing in the Akashic records. And then the other great gift is that not only can we clear those vows, we can reclaim many of these gifts and talents that we've had in other lifetimes and bring that energy present back in our lifetime and our higher Akashic wisdom that we can start to embody as we clear old energies. And so those were some kind of interesting pieces he had never run across. And then, we did some work on, he seemed to have an interesting Hippocratic oath from back in Lemuria, where he vowed never to do harm and never to use his healing gifts again. And so as a businessman, as a very spiritual person, and really energetically as a healer, he had really locked himself down energetically because of this vow that he took so long ago. And so we did a lot of healing for all of that, brought in the new energies and the new wisdoms that were ready to show up for him. And by the time we finished our hour session, he said he felt fabulous. He could feel some shifts in his body, in his energy field, in his head, in his heart. And so he was very excited and wants to do some more work around his business. So I'm sure I'll see him again.
So, thank you so much for coming on. And again, that's Lisa Barnett, and you can find her on LinkedIn under Akashic Knowing. Next week, Matt Connerton will be back for our monthly check-in on what's going on around the world while Matt and I kick it. So tune in next week, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on OMTimes Radio. Be well and kick well.